Okay, good evening and welcome. This is the June 21st, 2021 regularly scheduled school committee meeting. Call the meeting to order 7 o'clock. This meeting is being held remotely in accordance with the Governor of Massachusetts March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law. The portion of our meeting that is remote is any visitors that may be attending. So I'm just going to join because I haven't done so yet. I'm going to take a roll call. We have everyone in attendance. Actually, we'll take a formal roll call. Heather, if you'd like to start us off this evening, please.
Sure. Heather Brown, Director of Curriculum.
Bill Fonseca.
Sarah Trulio.
Greg Thompson, final time as chair.
Gordon Smith, Superintendent of Schools.
Antonella Rochella.
Pamela Blair, Assistant Superintendent for Business.
Kathy Saloti, Recording Secretary.
Okay, thank you all.
There you are.
There I am.
Let's see.
Well, before we get going too much further, I knew you were going to try to go right by that. We do have a presentation to make. As Mr. Thompson said, this is his final meeting as chair for this year. And we want to recognize the fact that this has been like no other year. And you have been incredible in your leadership, and we want to recognize that. And it says, the power of a team, presented to Gregory Thompson for your courageous and consistent leadership throughout the COVID-19 pandemic. The LPS School Committee Chair, 2020-2020.
Wow, that's really nice. Thank you. It really has been an honor to be the chair the last 2 years now, and we've been through a heck of a lot,
A few
all of us
things.
collectively. So thank you all for this year. We made it, right? We're on the other side, finally,
did.
and officially. So thank you for that, Gordon.
Sure. That's from all of us.
Yes, thank you, everybody. Thank you so much. Okay, let's move ahead then. We have some minutes for approval. If I could have a motion, please.
Move to approve the June 7th, 2021 executive session meeting minutes.
Motion has been made by Bill.
Second.
Second by Sarah. Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, nay. That motion carries 4-0. One more, please.
I move to approve the June 7th, 2021 regular session meeting minutes.
Motion made by Antonella.
Second.
Second by Sarah. Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. That motion carries 4-0 also. Thank you all. At this point is the opportunity for visitors to address the committee. If you are on our Zoom call and you would like to speak, now would be your chance to do so. Please raise your hand if you are interested in such a thing. Is this our last Zoom meeting?
It doesn't have to be that they did extend the.
I don't want to do it forever. Why would we? Why though?
Well,
I'm just asking. I'm not. Yeah.
it was extended to April of 2022, so.
Makes it certainly makes it.
Accessible.
More accessible.
Okay.
Some residents may be happy.
We'll talk about. Yeah. We'll figure it out going forward. But it's not necessary anymore.
Accessible to the public.
Yeah, no, understandable. Okay, thank you. We have an opportunity for committee and subcommittee communications. Antonella, anything tonight?
I attended an eLeaf meeting last week, and we just went through the grants that teachers had submitted, requesting materials for next year. I'm not sure when they're going to announce, or if they already have.
They did send us
Oh, they did?
a list of award or grant winners.
Oh, okay.
And so we were going to start to announce, but certainly wanted to thank eLeaf. It was just an incredible boost at the end of the year to have that happen.
I
So
think so too. It was really nice for the teachers, try and get something that they wanted or needed for next year.
Something positive too.
right.
It really is. I mean, eLeaf, they've done an amazing job supporting our schools. And it's a great group of parents in our community, and they put a lot of work into everything that they do. So
And very much appreciated. And we know this is a challenging year for them. They couldn't hold too many events to fundraise.
right. But they are planning events in the future. So
Excellent.
the the same one, so,
Great.
yes.
Sarah, anything this evening?
No, nothing tonight.
Bill?
I'm good.
Good. I'm good as well. We will move forward then. We have an end of the year presentation by the superintendent.
We do, and Ms. Brown is going to help, and we have it up on the 3 screens, and I don't know if we need to share your screen with Mr. Mackey as well.
I can just grab that if you want.
Okay. So as we were saying at the beginning of the meeting, one of the things that we really want to stress as we're presenting this end of the year presentation is that it really took all of us in this room, all of our staff coming together, all of our families coming together to make what I can only describe as an incredibly successful year, given the number of challenges that we had and the fact that we hit all 3 models. We had remote, we had hybrid, and we had in-person. And in essence then, and I said this to the graduating seniors, they're the only graduating senior class, hopefully, knock on wood, that had to go through 3 first days of school, if you will. And so that people's support, community support, all of your leadership has been incredible. So thank you. And I just wanted to mention that I think our staff, every staff member is a rock star. So, you know, we can't say that enough, how well the ELPS community came together and the community at large to get through this year.
If I can interrupt for 1 minute, Don, that's backwards.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that.
But
It won't matter.
only because you're seeing my screen.
Okay, all right. I just want to make sure that.
I didn't know if that's what they were
Sorry,
seeing.
we're looking
I was like,
All right, no.
So going to the next slide. Just some formal partnerships that we've held for a long time, but this year came in, became so beneficial. Obviously, our health department has worked with us on any number of events throughout my tenure here, but this year we were basically working together almost daily, and they are incredible. Our fire department, paramedics, and so forth, they've been so incredibly helpful, especially with our last 2 vaccine clinics, and Public Works. They were with us in the summer planning. They were checking out all the buildings. Obviously, they were looking at how HVAC and different systems are working to make sure that we could come back. And we did, and they were incredible. And so we want to thank them. It's really important that they know how much we value that partnership. With that said, I would like to just highlight our medical advisory group, which includes Amy Petrosky, our health director in town. But just going down in order of what you're seeing on the screen, we have Kelly LeBombard, our nurse leader, Greer Clark, our ELPS physician, pediatrician in town, who's been advising us and helped us all year, Amy Petrosky, who I mentioned, the EL Director of Health, and our nurses in our schools, Lori Barbeau at Meadowbrook, Nancy Paulides at Mapleshade, Sue Thomas at Mountain View, Natalie Burak at Birchland, and I'm missing Tia Mazza on here, but Tia Mazza, who's at ELHS, and Ann Haskell, who became a liaison. And I think as I added her, I must have knocked off Tia. So unfortunately, so I apologize, but Tia Mazza at the high school and Ann Haskell round out that group. And just to give you an idea on the next slide, you know, what did they do? Other than the many informal meetings, they had 22 formal planning meetings to help us get through this year and do it safely. They attended 9 school committee meetings. I just mentioned that we ran 2 vaccine clinics within the last month and a half. We identified 210 positive cases, or were alerted to positive cases. Then we that group went into action and started the contact tracing. So they were connecting with those 210 families. And then from that, they were helping us figure out who the close contacts were, and then contacted another 697 families. And probably the biggest feat that they've helped us with is that throughout the year, with all of those close contacts and positive cases, we didn't see any significant transmission in school. And so I think it's a tribute to their incredible expertise, their help with the planning, and then the implementation across the district by our staff was just fantastic. So I really wanted to take a moment just to recognize them. And then that brings us to our SMART goals. And I'm not going to read the entire slide to you. I think as we think about this goal around the whole child, the biggest piece for all of us as we were in the different instructional models was making sure we had a strong connection with our students and with our families. And so that's the main focus all year. And I think as we go to the next slide, we were able to succeed in that. Whether it would be remote, whether it be hybrid, or whether it be in person, we worked incredibly hard to make sure we were connecting with families and our students, and the result of each of those models as we got going into them, instructional models, was incredible, very successful. One of the things that we noted quite a bit early on, especially when we were in remote learning, was attendance. And so for the year, and this is information that we're pulling from our student information database, and we're pulling it all into Panorama now. So Panorama can put it all in one area for us, not only for central office, but for each school, for the MTSS teams in each school. So across the district, as you can see on the screens, we were in the 97% range for attendance throughout the year. District average 97.4. And then one of the biggest things that we were really excited about was Panorama took that and then calculated our chronic absenteeism, and the district right now is at 4%. And so we were pretty excited about that. I thought that was huge. Moving into, so what did it look like as we started to come back? And I think you get an idea of the incredible success that we had as you look at these pictures, despite having to wear masks, or as you see in the bottom picture there, be somewhat of a further distance from your fellow classmates. But you see here Meadowbrook students enjoying the in-person learning, getting back to using manipulatives. All our schools used the outdoors, if you can move to that next slide there. And so this is Meadowbrook having a lesson outside. You can see the butterfly in the picture, and so they're learning about butterflies, and all the students are engaged. And again, even wearing masks, we were able to engage and enjoy, and I know that there are smiles underneath those masks. And as you go to the next one, you can see, as they did enjoy mask breaks. And later in the year, as you all know, the guidance from DESE was that anytime we could get outside, we no longer had to wear masks, and our students and our teachers and our classes took advantage of that. This was pretty incredible. I just wanted to share this. So our specialists, and in this case, they're making a tribute to Ms. Berube, who's a music teacher, but our specialists were incredible this year. They were all on the move. They were all entering classrooms on a cart. They were connecting. And if you think of music throughout the year had to almost reinvent itself, because they couldn't use, at the beginning of the year, instruments. They couldn't sing. They couldn't do certain things that they're so used to. But looking at the pictures below and how much the Meadowbrook students seem to not only love Ms. Berube, but music in general, they were successful. And that's really impressive. And so I wanted to share that picture that Meadowbrook sent our way. Moving on, just taking a look at all our schools. Maple Shade, as they got back in, you can see that they started to get into robotics and hands-on manipulatives, as we saw with the Meadowbrook students. You know, stayed safe, but we're engaging in the learning. Then, as you can see, we used our outdoor spaces quite a bit. And then you have on one side, you have probably pre-May 27th, and then the other side, you have post-May 27th, when masking outside no longer needed to happen. We were able to start to bring back some of the things that we normally do. And so you've seen in person over the years the immigration simulation that Meadowbrook does. And they ran that, and they ran it outside, and the students got to engage again. You can see that they're in some of their costumes there, as well as our staff members being in costume. And so they're going through the customs agent here. And that's a great project. I'm glad they're able to get to do that in person this year. Moving over to Mountain View, you can see how they started to use their outdoor classrooms and even get back into, I think that's a little bit of a Harry Potter reference, I believe. And so, I'm sorry?
That's Harry Potter Day.
Harry Potter Day, so there you go. And use a little podium out there that's natural with the tree stump, which is pretty neat. And they also were getting, once they returned to the classroom, getting into the hands-on learning and looking at different things. It looks like on the right side you have a Jeopardy game of sorts going on. And so we kept people engaged. No matter the model, we were trying to keep the fun and the joy in learning. And also, as we go through, in this next slide, you'll see that, this happens to be Mountain View, but I think all our buildings started to really take a look at and help and, perform some community service. So here, this is Mountain View's drive to help the East Long Meadow Food Pantry. And that they've done that in years past, and usually are pretty successful with their drive. It looks like from this picture, they were very successful this year. Moving to Birchland. As we came back, we know because the term was both in person, but also live streaming, because there would be people learning remotely. And so in this case, as two students are using the laser cutter, they're also sharing what they're doing with their partners online. And so no matter what challenge was thrown at our students, they, with the help of their teachers, partnered and found a way to get through that challenge. And so that's pretty neat. They even came up with iReady Awards, which is very similar to the Oscar Awards. And so this was a way to recognize some of our students who are excelling in iReady and moving through their lessons at a pretty rapid pace and really doing a great job. And so you can see the little statues look very similar to Oscars. And as is needed on any day in a middle school, you have to have fun. Actually, in all schools, you have to have fun. And so here's some pictures of Birchland just mixing it up a little bit as they came back to in-person learning. And then just last week, we got to cap it off with just a beautiful day and a ceremony in the morning for both awards, and then launching our 8th graders into now being rising 9th graders, which is pretty cool. We weren't worried about Dr. Allen. It's not that no one showed up. People were, at this point when I was taking this picture, people were on the move starting to hand out awards and so forth. We did have people in those 3 chairs. It wasn't Dr. Allen by himself. And then we get to the high school, and there's a series of pictures here where math classes are starting to bring it alive and actually use manipulatives like we saw in other schools. In this case, they're trying to set up a roller coaster. And so you have, starting in Mr. Anier's class, and then you move to the hallway, and you see just groups of students starting to chart and graph their, as we were calling them, the marble roller coasters, which is pretty neat to see as we started to get our students back. And chemistry class went on as usual. We had a little bit more gear on in terms of protective gear, but as you're in chemistry class, you're used to wearing the protective goggles. You're also used to wearing gloves. And so the masks was just a little addition. But our students were engaged. Our students were working through the lab experiments, and it was great to see. And then as you move to the next picture, this was something that our Model Congress put together. They held a meeting with Chicopee Comprehensive High School and then invited District Attorney Gallooni, who came, which is pretty fantastic. And so they're having a meeting with Chicopee Comp, while District Attorney Gallooni is also their special guest at that meeting. And so not only are we connecting again in person, we're now starting to make some of the connections that we do in a regular school year with the Hampden County District Attorney's Office. And then I put a few pictures in here because I think this really captured the essence of the East Long Meadow Public Schools. We had 2 students, and then a 3rd student joined, and Mr. Mackey became their advisor. And so I believe in this picture you have Ben and Franco, who were our initial students to kind of go rummaging through some of the storage areas that we have next to the LCAT studio, and they found this kit that went back to when we had automotive here, and it's a go-kart kit. And they asked Mr. Mackey if they could actually start to put it together, because one of the things that they had heard was that Mr. Green, who tragically passed away this school year, and Mr. Less had always thought about bringing that cart into one of their classes and starting to put it together and get students connected with a project like this. And so these 2 students started it off. Mr. Mackey thankfully supported it. And then they brought in a 3rd student who wasn't necessarily in the LCAT class, but had a little bit more knowledge of how engines worked and specifically go-karts and that type of thing. And so the cool thing in here, as you're looking at sort of the hands-on learning, is they're fully engaged and they're basically creating their own lessons. We're dealing with, some engineering, some science, and so forth. And they, other than the student they brought in, had never done something like this before. And so they're learning and tweaking it as they go along. And as they put this together, their goal was to make sure that it was working and that they could hopefully run it in the July 4th parade as a tribute to Mr. Green. And we think we can get there as you go through. There you see Ian testing it out once it fully was built. And he was probably the best test driver of all that took place. There's Mr. Less. And we're so happy that he had a chance to get in there and test it out. And if we can get some things worked out with the brakes, we may have Mr. Less drive it in the parade. There's Mr. Page, and that's the actually the best picture is a more fearful look on some of the other pictures. So we'll leave him with that one. And the only reason I don't look fearful is because I think at this point I was stopped. And so otherwise there were probably pictures of panic. But it was incredibly cool. And I think the students were so excited to see the adults engage the way we all did. And so it's, I can't thank Mr. Mackey enough for taking that on and, and then bringing us all in. So because it really captured sort of what East Long Meadow Public Schools are all about. And we all work to, if you want to flip it one more, we all work together to get here. That's what it's all about. Working from pre-K all the way through to grade 12, keeping people engaged, giving them opportunities to succeed, and then as we get to their 12th grade year, having the chance to recognize all their achievements at the graduation ceremony. So I wanted to start with that pictorial because I thought, for people who may be watching and really for all of you, even though I know you've lived it, it gave a pretty good idea of just how successful this year was despite numerous challenges, as you all know. When it got right down to the classroom instruction, that's what was happening, and that was really cool. So I wanted to make sure we gave due time to that and make sure we captured each school. And we congratulated Mr. Mackey because he was going out of his way, created an internship that he didn't even know about. So
I didn't do anything.
I would beg to differ, but okay.
Just laughed.
So moving into, as we think about the whole child, this year with Panorama, we've been able to do more surveys that have given us information throughout the year. And so we finished out the year with similar surveys that we've called our social and emotional learning surveys. First up, you see grades 3 through 5, and Ms. Brown, I think, is going to walk us through these. For me, the 2 top categories are the ones that I was really interested in, to make sure that our students felt strongly that they had that support around them, you know, and that they were feeling, for the most part, positive feelings. In this case, it's 3 through 5. And I know Ms. Brown is more and can break it down a little bit better than maybe I just did.
Sure. Just to reiterate what you said, I think this has been an incredible year just to showcase just how amazing the teachers and administrators are, that despite a pandemic, you'll see in a minute how much kids grew academically, but also were happy. And so when you look at this information here, there's a few things I wanted to point out. The supportive relationships includes having an adult at school that they feel like they can talk to, and that they feel that they can get support from. For some reason, this one is not doing the comparison like the other charts did, but last time that was 88%, so that did grow. One of the things that we're getting feedback from some of the teachers is that the wording of some of the questions is a little strange, and we need to work on that to help students really understand what they're being asked, especially around growth mindset. They're really overthinking it a little bit because of the wording. But as you can see, regardless, in terms of the national percentile, especially for the first three, we're in the highest percentile. That distance learning environment was a question about how much they enjoyed learning what they were being taught in school, and we just kept that title because it was basically the same thing as before. It's not nationally normed because we came up with that question, but obviously most of them weren't distance learning this last part of the year, but that's why that was labeled that way.
So some of the things that we're going to do this summer with the leadership team is start to dig in a little bit, especially with the nationally normed questions. Where do we stand? What are we seeing as we break this survey down even more? But we were really excited to see that 91%, which was, as Ms. Brown said, up from 88%. It was pretty high before. And then as you flip to 6 through 12, we do dip a little bit more, and I think it's about the same as the mid-year percentage in terms of supportive relationships. It's at 85%, and positive feelings didn't necessarily go up an incredible amount, but did go up, which was great, and challenging feelings also improved. But to the point Ms. Brown was making before, growth mindset. So we have to look at that question. And these are questions that we're pulling from Panorama around certain categories, and so maybe we have to look at are there other ways to ask that question that will get at and still be in that national norming situation.
And
go ahead, I'm sorry.
Mr. Smith just said, you know, we can use this information for trends and really trying to dig into whole picture things, but the MTSS teams have also been looking at this because Panorama will indicate if a child responded negatively to all of these, if there's something that we should look into and find out more. So that's really how we've been using it, is kind of more for individual kids. But as we get more and more of this information, we'll be able to look at it for trends.
And they'll also be able to track that, so they can put, if they do put some kind of intervention in place for a specific student or group of students, they can track how that support is working, which I think is going to be really helpful. This year we were training the MTSS teams in this, as well as working through how you put together a group of people and have individuals from across the district take on leadership roles. We'd like to see that happen more and more as we have our building MTSS teams working together. The K-2, this is actually the teachers take this, so it's not the students answering it, but it will be interesting to see as you look at these numbers and then further into this presentation when you see what the teachers said about their experience and enthusiasm and so forth. But as you can see, emotion regulation was up. Social awareness dropped a little bit, but still 77%. Engagement went up, which was pretty great. That's again, teachers are presenting this, but I think that shows the spike.
Perception of their students.
Right, as we got back in person. Moving to, so this was a survey that we sent out to our staff district-wide. So it came out of central office. No specific school. It was to the entire ELPS instructional staff. So you had teachers and paraprofessionals and so forth responding. And this was actually one of the things that I was mentioning as I was talking about on a previous slide. We're talking about how the students came in, how they felt in terms of positive feelings. You know, this gives an idea of how at the end of the year our teachers were feeling. And it was nice to see that if you look at the green and what I'm going to call purple, but maybe that's not the correct color. You have about 79.2% of our staff responding and saying that they're quite enthusiastic on a daily basis coming into their job, or extremely enthusiastic. And you don't drop incredibly when you have somewhat enthusiastic added in terms of how we're feeling about it. And that accounts for 98.4% of our staff.
And this was anonymous, so no one
was
felt
anonymous, yep.
obligated to say things. This is
Right. And if they did have an open response at the end, and so they did tell us some things, which we'll go through this summer. And then as you move to the next one, so again, remember the K-2 teachers were looking at how they felt their students were feeling about school. So this is how teachers across the board are feeling about students arriving to school. And we were excited, you know, that if you take all three again, somewhat enthusiastic to extremely enthusiastic, they're estimating about 84.6% of our students are feeling somewhere on a daily basis, somewhat enthusiastic, to extremely enthusiastic. And even as you got down to slightly enthusiastic, which was another 13.8%, you have close to 100% there, with just a few that they feel are not at all enthusiastic. But that's where the panorama is going to help us, because we should be finding out why.
exactly. And when we look at UDL, obviously multiple means of engagement is one of them. And so I've already been having conversations with some groups and looking at our curriculum and thinking about how do we make this more engaging for our students. So people are already starting to think about that and make changes.
Have we considered doing these surveys by school? Just so that it would kind of pinpoint more if maybe this school needed more support in this area than a different school.
So they did say which school they were at, so we can break this
okay.
down by school.
Oh, all
Yeah.
right, all right.
We figured for this presentation, though, we would go full district.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
that's fine.
So we can start to, yeah, no.
Well, that's why I'm just
We have
like,
an
well,
idea of the 130 responses. We can start to break it out by
Yeah.
school.
Okay.
Sorry, I lost my place for a second.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. This was actually, you know, as we think about social emotional learning, this was a really important question. And again, we went through a number of questions that Panorama has in their survey bank. And, you know, the question seems simple enough, and you would think, oh, well, all adults feel like they belong, but that's not always the case. And so we were very happy that we got as high a percentage at the end of such a challenging year as we did. So if you're looking at, this is how staff feels, you know, how they feel like they belong at their school. And so when you break down belong quite a bit or completely belong, and that's the green and the purple, that's about 77.7%. When you add belong somewhat, you're up to about 94.6. So that was really nice to see. But again, like anything else, we're going to dig into those comments and figure out, okay, where are people feeling ill at ease or uncomfortable, and let's see if we can work on that. Because it's not just about social and emotional learning and support for students. We all have to be involved in this because we all contribute to the culture of our schools.
how many staff are there in our district?
Teaching staff, we have about 150, and if you add paras to that, you'd be close to about 250. So this is low.
Is this teachers, paras,
It was sent out to
leaders?
It was sent out to teachers and paras.
Okay.
I don't think we had any administrators participate because we were trying to keep them out of it and just hear from our sort of our instructional staff, if you will. Next year we'll send it out. I think we'll probably send it out a few more times, and we'll give them more time. We did send it out late So it was part of the frenzy of the end of the year. But I was happy to see that we got 130 responses, and that in some of these key questions, they're feeling like they do belong, they are connected, and I think that's important, which would then lead to why it was a high percentage feeling enthusiastic. This one is something that we were just talking about with the students, and I think it's one of the best results that I've seen throughout the survey is that all of the people respond, not all, but 96.2% of the people responding felt that they had a colleague, an administrator, a department head, someone in the building to whom they could go and resolve and work through challenges. And so I think that's really important. And that brings us to another SMART goal where we're looking at, how do we do as we start to try to bring more inclusive learning environments and instructional practices, and start to look at different instructional strategies. And so we did have part of that as our survey, if we can move to that next slide. And this was this is one that I don't think we've put in a formal survey before. And so again, as Ms. Brown said, it's anonymous, so they could give us an idea, how do you feel about the feedback you're receiving? So I think this first question, even though we didn't say feedback you're receiving from administrators, given the next two questions, I think they inferred, yes, this is coming from, about administrators. And so we were pleasantly surprised, maybe not surprised, but we were excited about the results and hoping that we would see something like this where you have about 51.5% saying the feedback they're receiving is quite useful to extremely useful. And then if you add somewhat useful, you go up to about 82.3%. I think we still have to look at and figure out, 13% are saying it's only slightly useful, and a smaller percentage, but there, or a few people who said it's not useful at all. And so we have to dig into that and figure out how we can provide feedback that people are feeling is useful and moves their teaching a little bit. This was really nice to see, because we do a lot of work, as you know, through the years where we have some of our staff present professional development. And so we asked, how helpful are your colleagues' ideas for improving your teaching? And you can see that 63.8% thought it was either quite helpful or extremely helpful. And then if you add that category of somewhat helpful, you have about 92.3%. So obviously they feel feedback they get from their colleagues is valuable and does move them forward in their instructional practices. This one, I think, is probably, in terms of feedback, the best one, because if you take all three, sometimes, frequently, almost always, when you're talking about student feedback, and I think that's the most important feedback, whether it be direct, something that they're actually doing in terms of assessment or ticket to leave, or indirect feedback that they might get as they're just checking for understanding and they're looking at their class, and off of that check for understanding, they may have to revamp or redo something that they were thinking this was going to be how the lesson plan went. And teachers do that all the time. It's recognizing and hopefully seeing that the folks we have to focus in on in terms of feedback, first and foremost, is our students. And so we have about 93.1% that saying that they're implementing that sometimes, frequently, to almost always. And so that was good to see. So this is where next year we're really going. And this was something that you saw in the negotiated tentative agreements with Unit A, where in there was a bullet point talking about, through the course of this contract, both parties agree to look at and increase collaborative time. And so this year, one of the silver linings of the pandemic was the fact that in some of our schedules, especially the remote schedule, we were able to bring teachers, whether it be in a department or a grade level, together more often than we've ever done in the past. And so one of the tasks that we are looking to accomplish this summer, and actually start, we've already started, but this week re-engage, is building elementary schedules where we can build in that collaborative time weekly with your grade level colleagues. And so we've been working over the last year or so, 2 years actually, COVID's kind of knocked around our scheduling, with district management group. And so we've been re-engaging, mostly Ms. Brown's been re-engaging and looking at schedules and trying to make sure that we're ready now. As students have left us for the summer, we can bring back the principals from all 3 elementary schools and start to really look at that. And district management group has put together a couple mock-up schedules to show how you might be able to do this, where you're using specials time and you're bringing together the grade level homeroom teachers. So as you can see here, it's kind of all over the map in terms of how they view the opportunity, or when they have the opportunity to work with colleagues. And so we'd like to see that, not 20% in each part of the pie, but a much higher percentage, into the 90% range, where you see frequently or almost always. And so that's a task we're working on this summer.
Does the high school have time built in their schedule?
And
for
so
this?
we're also going to be engaging. Yeah, we've been working with elementary, but we have to increase high school as well. The school, basically because of the model of a middle school that has the most meeting time, is the middle school. And so we have to look at the high school schedule as well. Yeah, we started with elementary and we're working our way up.
Yes.
Good question though. And Mr. Page and Mr. Wright know that that's something they have to start to look at and figure out, how do we free up people.
Well, I mean, even if they start with 1 grade level.
Yeah. I think the grade level they're going to focus on is 9th grade. Yeah. And start to free
9 or
up.
10.
Yes.
Yeah, you could. I mean,
But,
when I was principal, I had broken our school into almost 2 houses, sort of entry and transition to high school, grades 9 and 10, and then really focused on planning and exiting high school, 11 and 12. We were able to, I mean, you have to have the staff to be able to do it and break that stuff up.
right, and I'm sure that the scheduling, it's not easy
No.
to do, but I do feel like it's.
Oh, it's imperative. Yeah, no, we know. And
So-
they are starting to look at, I think they're going to target 9th, maybe they can get to
Yeah.
10th. And it's probably going to come through the duty schedule.
Mhm.
We're going to have to pull off duties and say, okay, instead of doing hall duty or X duty on this day,
Mhm.
we're going to free up, 9th grade teachers and look at how our students are adjusting.
I mean, even if they started with something just once or twice a week.
Right.
And just something like that.
So, no, it's a great question, because the discussions have, because we let, our entire leadership team know we were working with elementaries and district management group.
Mhm.
And then that helped us into the conversation with the high school and say, okay, granted right now we don't have a consultant helping you, but what are things that you're seeing that we can start to, couple or schedule folks together?
I mean, just by looking at the data on the other slide, how much they learned from meeting
Right.
with each other and,
Right.
and from
Yeah.
talking
They
to
see
their
it as
colleagues.
incredibly valuable time, so that's a good thing to springboard on. If you're saying that's something, and we know that it's been discussed in negotiations, yeah, we can move on that, which is great.
And then this slide shows that not everyone feels like they're using the time as well. And we got that from a learning survey through CLE as well. So that's why we kind of reworked the department head role to be more of a curriculum leader with some more guidance.
Right.
And we're bringing in Research for Better Teaching. They have an excellent program on effective teams. So the department heads will have the opportunity to have that training as well, so that the expectations will be clearer about that time, and they'll have the tools and the training to run these meetings that will really have an impact.
And I think certainly Research for Better Teaching is going to be incredibly helpful, but I do want to give Ms. Brown kudos where it's deserved. I mean, 2 years ago, she had voluntarily almost every department chair sign up for a training that she ran in the spring. It was it in April or May?
It's everything pre-pandemic seems so long ago. I don't know.
I was just going to say that, piggybacking on the success, I think our department chairs want to go there.
Oh yeah, and
We just haven't been able to provide the tools.
Yeah.
And we get stuck in older structures. Now, the pandemic, I guess that's one of the silver linings of the benefits, is it's kind of broken up all of our structures.
Yeah.
And so you have a chance to look at them and say, okay, well, before we put them back into place, let's re-examine this and see, can we do it better? So this one here, oh, you already moved. So we have Research for Better Teaching coming in to work with our department heads. And then this is one we also have to dig in. It's kind of all over the map as to whether they feel they have a voice. It's nice to see that we have about 51.5% feeling that they agree they have a voice or they strongly agree, but you're talking, there's another 49% that feel they don't have a voice, and so we need to look at that. And some of that gets broken down a little bit in the comments, and so we're gonna sort of break those down and figure out how do we do a better job providing a voice for all of our teachers.
Although, like you said, I think there have been so many more opportunities for teachers to take on leadership roles and have voice.
Right. I think just the MTSS training alone has provided them the opportunity to, they're going to be rotating who facilitates those meetings. They all have had a chance to learn and gain certain skills at running a meeting and sort of structure it in a way that's going to be productive. And so we're excited about that. And then our final goal around continuous learning and achievement, the big piece here is that we're hoping, and this growth range is coming from the state around the state assessment. It's not necessarily, and Ms. Brown will go into further detail on this, how iReady breaks out growth. But basically, as we gain in our results throughout the summer and into the fall, we're hoping that our students are staying in that typical growth range to high growth. And that brings us into the slides of the iReady slides. Ms. Brown will walk us through some of the key points here.
So the iReady this year, first grade through 8th grade took it in the fall and in the winter, and then kindergarten took it for the first time this spring. And then starting next year, kindergarten will be taking it regularly as well. It'll be a little bit of a staggered start just because kindergartners are getting used to everything and including the technology. But with the new mass guidelines around universal screening and dyslexia screening, that's going to be something that needs to be part of the kindergarten as well, so that we can catch kids. And what's really interesting about the iReady reading is they do have now a dyslexia screener that doesn't say this child has dyslexia, but they do give us an indication of at risk for learning difficulties. You should, go further and do some more diagnostic testing. So we'll have that as well, and that'll be another tool the MTSS teams can use. So on this, I think the growth is a little bit more telling, which we'll show you in a minute, but the green with the stripes is at mid or above grade level. The green without stripes is early on grade level. Yellow is 1 grade level below. The red is 2 grade levels below, and the red with 3 stripes is 3 or more grade levels below. So between the third and the third diagnostic and the first one that we took, obviously we've moved in the right direction. The goal is always to shrink that yellow and red. And so what the bottom shows you is for each domain and how many more kids improved in each of those domains. But the growth is really what's exciting. Oh, not this one, sorry. I got ahead of myself.
This just breaks down that slide,
Yeah.
the previous slide, which was district, now it breaks it down by school.
Yeah.
And so the pieces here, although we certainly have some percentages that we need to look at, we're at least feeling very positive about the fact that we're reducing the yellow and the reds at the different grade levels in our schools. And one of the things that we all know is that we're going to be participating in summer academies this year, and we've not only put out invitations based on some of the assessment data, but then we've also just opened it up recently to all students who might be interested in coming. But we wanted to make sure.
Positive.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Just
Yeah, no, you've been
That
talking.
just that, yeah, a lot of parents have been reaching out, very thankful, very excited about the opportunity, so. Is it okay if I move on to
Yeah,
this?
please.
So this can be a little tricky to read, but if you look at that, for each school, it says the progress median. Basically, iReady creates a growth target for kids and a typical growth based on how kids typically test. And they use students' first diagnostic to determine that, and basically those growth targets, depending on how they scored, are a certain amount of points. Then there's a stretch growth where it would be where kids need to go in order to either be performing at grade level or maintaining what they're already doing if they're above grade level. So you want to see about 100% median progress. That means they're growing as they should. Anything over that means faster than average growth. So the fact that we have one school that's close to 100 and the other 3 for reading above 100 is pretty remarkable considering we're in a pandemic. Just shows how amazing our teachers are. And then if you look above, you can see the percentage of students who met their typical growth. Like Mr. Smith was saying, you know, those kids that are the 26% who are on the lower end are kids that we need to definitely work better on and helping them get where they need to be. But for the most part, you did the math earlier, Mr. Smith. Is it what, 65% have done 60 or more percent of progress?
Right. In a year of pandemic, I mean, we obviously want that whole graph to shift to the right in this case. Not used to saying it shift to the right. Usually you want to shift to the left, but okay, we'll shift to the right in this case. So that's something that we need to dig into, and then this breakout helped us figure out, okay, we want to give out some very specific invitations and make sure that we're supporting our students and our families.
So we used recommendations from teachers as well as the iReady data, and not just this last diagnostic, but we kind of looked at the trends. And then math, similarly, the green increases for each domain and between diagnostic 1 and the most recent, and the red and the yellow have shrunk. And then you can see this for each school. And then for the growth, again, not as amazing as the reading, but 2 schools at 100% median progress, and 2 not too far off from 100. So again, considering everything that happened this year, it's pretty remarkable.
So that brings us to our final slide. Just all 3 goals working to and continuously work, hopefully connected to each other to support our students and our staff, moving our students forward. Can't say enough about everybody coming together and making this year a success. Questions on any of that? I know you're asking questions throughout, but if you have other questions.
I have a question.
All right.
All of the growth data is for our elementary and middle school.
Yep.
What are we using to show growth in high school?
So we don't have this type of diagnostic right now for high school, which is why we're going to move into the PSAT and start to use that and make it become universal for 9th, 10th, 11th graders. So we can start to look at that and break it down and use it as a way similar to this, start planning for our students.
It does give you a lot of good
Academically.
data if you break it down the College Board, as I'm sure you know, and they also have personalized learning paths through Khan Academy, so we can use that for interventions and measure growth, but also it would be an opportunity for kids to practice taking that assessment several times.
And we haven't had that kind of participation in the past. So I think if we put together the program, now you're going to have all 9th graders take it, all 10th graders take it.
Is that what we're going towards? That everyone's going to be taking it in school?
Right.
Budgeted for next year.
Yeah. so that we can start to use that as a diagnostic, because I know that Mr. Page and Mr. Wright are feeling the same way, that, okay, we don't have, they see this. It's not, this is something we share with the leadership teams. Like, okay, we don't have a uniform way to do this for the high school, and we need to find something that's going to help drive that.
Right. And even if it was some kind of diagnostic too that they were doing in each of the contents for
Right.
each grade level.
And they had flirted a little bit with
Yes.
Albert I.O. last year.
Albert I.O. does have some good diagnostics. The nice thing about the PSAT is that it is norm, so it's not something that we're creating, right? And it does give you breakdown for historical argument as well as scientific. I can't remember if it's argument, but so it's not exactly content specific, but you do get a little bit of information there, and then obviously with the reading and writing and mathematics.
That's the final slide.
Okay, excellent presentation, Theron. Thank you very much. Good information, good things going on here. There are no other. Okay, if there are no other questions, we will move on to our next order of business. We have the superintendent's evaluation. The committee has had an opportunity to review. Bill, are you able to give us a little synopsis as we move forward?
Sure. All right, I'm not going to go through the individual goals. I'll just hit on the standards that we basically evaluate you on. And under instructional leadership, the rating will be from proficient to exemplary. And one example is all planning groups in the district are solely focused on providing ELPS staff the support and professional development needed to effectively implement each of the 3 instructional models, remote, hybrid, and in-person. We've all acknowledged every year, throughout the year, how much of a challenge this is. So this is what the synopsis showed on how we move forward with that. Moving along to management and operations, the rating here was proficient. Created and facilitated operations planning group for the district to review how standard operations would need to change in order to operate effectively during the COVID-19 pandemic. I mean, obviously everything that had occurred this year was around the pandemic. We had no other choice, but again, moving forward with that. Family and community engagement was proficient to approaching exemplary. Over the last 12 months, 652 unique messages were sent to families through the Blackboard Connect system. All 3 elementary schools are now utilizing Bloom's messaging system. Coordinating this elementary platform has allowed for more frequent messaging by both the schools and to the schools and to the classrooms, families. This platform also allows for a transition into different languages, which we're all seeing the need for that.
And I have to say, that's a team effort. That's, that's Ms. Brown, that's the principals, that's putting that whole thing together. Certainly the messages weren't all mine. People get tired of my voice.
Unless it's a snow day.
Yeah, listen.
But still might happen.
All right, the next one is professional culture.
Doesn't do anything to me.
Professional culture is proficient. The rating is proficient. Organized and facilitated working committees with people from all roles in the district from July through the school year in order to plan and structure safe and engaging learning spaces for each of the 3 instructional models, fully remote, hybrid, and in-person. The committees utilized the skills of people throughout the district. The 4 committees were the following: ELPS leadership team, ELPS instructional planning, health and operations, and the ELPS ELEA planning and negotiating committee. The planning and effort of each group allowed ELPS to successfully enter into each instructional model in the different points of the school year. And the overall performance rating was proficient.
Thanks.
Thank you, Bill, for summarizing that. lengthy document. Much appreciated. Beth, you're joining us? You're gonna?
I'll wait till, because I haven't been all the time.
Okay. After this, you mean? Is that what you mean?
Sure.
Okay. Anything else on the evaluation? No, it's been a exemplary year indeed, all around, I would say. And so, Gordon, certainly thank you for your leadership
Sure.
throughout the district.
Takes a team.
Yes, a lot of things that we'll have to reflect on one of these days,
Yeah.
and how crazy it's really been. So, but thank you for your time and effort this past year. So with that, then I would entertain a motion to approve the superintendent evaluation as presented this evening.
So moved.
Motion has been made by Bill,
Second?
second by Sarah. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, nay. The motion carries 4-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gordon. Okay, we have some business for the MASC voting delegate. Something we choose every year. And this would require attendance at the conference, that's correct?
Yes.
Are you gonna go this year?
Yeah, now let me just, I'll give you a quick, because the next two items kind of tie together. Okay. The last that I heard is there will be a conference this year. They're still working, MASC is working with the Town of Hyannis and the Barnstable County Department of Public Health to figure all this out. They plan on having a conference. They're not sure of the numbers yet. One of the problems they're running into, and this is across the industry, is getting help to staff the conference center. The conference will be offered both in person and hybrid. They're not sure if they're going to cap the numbers yet of in person, depending on what they find out as the pandemic continues to wind down or whatever, however you want to classify it.
Yeah.
My plan is to hopefully attend in person, so I will take on the role of delegate if the committee so wants me to. That's not a problem. The early bird registration, I mean, they always send it out there. We've got time.
Like 2 weeks, right?
Yeah, 2 weeks, I think. Before July 15th.
You have to do it after July 1 anyway.
Yeah,
because
yeah,
it's
because of
taking
the
place in the
year,
next
so-
fiscal year.
I mean, there is significant savings. Okay, $150 is $150, and then the hotel accommodations will be on the individual, whoever decides to attend. Okay, they have moved the delegate assembly from, it first started off as Wednesday afternoon, then they moved it to Friday afternoon.
Yeah.
Now they're pushing it to Saturday morning. What they're trying to do is keep people there because,
Yeah.
And Gordon, you can attest to this. After the general session on Thursday, everybody leaves.
Yeah.
Or
Bill, Beth, and
general-
I, we stay.
Yeah, a lot of people leave after the general session on Thursday. By Friday, places are closed down.
We've been there Friday night
Yes, we have been there Friday.
at the dinner.
Thanks.
So like I
Okay.
said, I will.
Bill's planning on going. Anybody else planning on going? I may go as well, but you're gonna go, Beth? You want to be the alternate? Okay. Anybody else planning on going that would want either of those positions? You can still go, but if we vote tonight to make Bill the
Bill.
Yeah,
voting.
if, you know, this
That's
thing.
the
I don't know if I can go yet.
Okay, yeah, and you're still welcome to go, but just tonight's business, a voting delegate
Oh, yeah,
and the
you need to
alternate
go.
would be better.
Yeah, because you know what? Nobody wants to stay till Saturday morning, believe me.
I stayed last time till Saturday morning.
I've got a wedding that Friday night. Yeah, sure. I always come back.
There you go.
You can't make that.
Yeah, you know what? Last year,
That's
it being
dedication.
virtual was kind of tough because that was a long day. It being in person, it goes a lot quicker.
Okay, so with that, I entertain a motion for the voting delegate and the alternate voting delegate for the MASC conference.
I move that Bill Bonsica be the MASC voting delegate and Elizabeth Marcy Voucher be the alternate for the 2021
Yep.
MASC conference.
Excellent. Motion made by Sarah,
Second.
second by Antonella. Any other discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. That carries.
Should I abstain? Because I'm kind of weird.
No, you're back in.
I said,
5-0. Thank you. So just for the just for the record, Mrs. Barzine Boucher is in attendance now. She's joined us, so thank you for being here.
And as more information about the conference comes out, I will let everybody know.
Okay, and then so we briefly touched on our next order of business, early bird registration. If you are planning on going, if we could decide by the 15th, I guess would be the key.
So that's the optimal.
Kathy, do you mind sending out an email a couple days before that, maybe just to remind, please? Okay, thank you. And
Well, if
then,
there's anything I can do to expedite, like get you a payment, just let me know for the early registration. Okay, I think I can make that happen.
Thank you.
Okay.
We'll talk.
okay, any other questions on the MASC-MASS joint conference in November?
And as I said, as more information comes out, I'll let everybody know.
Excellent, thank you so much. Okay, more fun stuff. We have the 4th of July parade coming up. It is
For a while.
yeah, restrictions are lifted and we're gonna be back to normal. And we have been invited as the school committee to participate and march.
And I plan to march.
With the superintendent as well. So how
Not
many
in
folks
flip-flops.
think they might come for the
Yeah, why not?
1, 2, 3?
Mhm.
You're out? Okay, I'd probably be there too. So 4 of us
Okay,
and yourself.
sounds good.
You get a big quote this year.
We can make that
He's gonna
happen.
ride the go-kart.
I know.
There you go.
I've got trucks and trailers if you want to start decorating.
Oh, hey.
Wait, do you know a
I've
band?
never done
Do you know a band?
No,
I'd love to have a band. Yeah?
What DJs? You know DJs.
Let's
Oh,
figure
hey.
something out. There's going to be not a lot as many bands this year,
No.
so it'd be nice to have music
The last I heard, it was.
And be on a truck.
and be on a truck.
Yeah.
We could do both. Yeah,
Or we
make
could
it
walk in front of the truck.
Yeah, we can hop on it.
Or dance for you.
You could dance. Whatever moves you to the
Well,
celebrate.
in all seriousness, if you guys could get that go-kart up and, figure out the brake problem, I think that would be really good. I'm serious.
Yeah.
But I think that's gonna be for Mr. Les, though.
Yeah, I know, but I think, I'm sitting there going, oh, no, but just,
No, well, yeah, I mean, again, the plan is to have it in there.
Sweet.
let's make it happen.
And then we add the truck and the DJ
Yeah.
for us.
Dude, we'll be the head of the show, whole parade.
There you go.
We're on to something here.
Okay, make it happen.
Awesome. That's
Okay.
fantastic. We probably have to let them know if we're bringing all this stuff. Actually,
Well, no, what they want.
I run the door, so you got
Well,
rent.
I got it. We're on the entrances, so we're all set.
Okay,
No, I think they wanted to know participants so that they
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
for the announcement.
Yeah. Excellent.
But
All right, thank you all for that discussion. Looking forward to seeing you all on the 4th. Okay, and our final order of business is the discussion on transportation stipend. We discussed this in executive session, but bring it to open session. The recommendation would be a $3,000 stipend and a $1,500 stipend for the backup position. This would help us in our attempt to cover what was once covered by the transportation coordinator director.
Yeah, it would be
Um,
customer service, the registration process, and then, anything from a daily standpoint in terms of the customer service, as well as the Unipay accounts, making sure that that's dealt with monthly and making sure we organize the reports.
Excellent. So with that, I would entertain a motion to approve the 2 stipends as discussed.
So moved.
Motion has been made by Bill,
Second?
second by Sarah. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. That motion carries 4-0. Anything else on this of the evening? Actually, we're going to move into executive session, so I'm going to entertain a motion for that in just 1 second. If we have no other business tonight, I want to thank everybody for their attendance this evening. And we're going to take a little break in July. We have our reorganization meeting July 1st. That should be our only order of business on that meeting. And then we'll have a few weeks off and back to work for the next school year. Not that I want to talk about it, because today's the last day of school.
Right.
1 school year at a time. But thank you all so very much for your time and energy and efforts this year. It's an amazing, incredible year. I think we're all stronger and better for what we've all been through. collectively and individually. So just want to thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, I would entertain a motion to go to executive session for discussion about non-union contract negotiation.
So moved.
Motion's been made by Bill.
Yes.
And to return open, no, only adjourn. Thank you, Mr. Beck. Is that your motion, Bill?
Yep.
Kathy, you've got that whole thing? Thank you. Motion's been made by Bill,
Second.
seconded by Sarah. Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll roll call Bill.
Yes.
Sarah.
Yes.
Antonella.
Yes.
Beth. And I'm a yes as well. That motion carries 5-0. We are in moving to executive session. So good night, everyone, and thank you so much.